Philo's Summary Tutor, Part 1 and 2. Welcome to your Summary Tutor, Part 1. About Philo's Summary Tutor. Summary Tutor helps all students, particularly those preparing to write senior high school examination as regular or private candidates, to score very high marks in summary for an excellent or decent pass in the English language paper. It demystifies summary, makes it a simple everyday activity. Each student is therefore advised to own a copy to master the art of summarizing. Whom does summary favor? Examination, they say, favors the fool. To a large extent, this paradox is true. Sometimes the so-called good student, trying to summarize the point well to score the maximum, ends up changing every word. Such a student finally writes something new, but different from the idea expressed in the passage. For the others, they make a few changes using simple language and score very high marks. So summary favors those who do not over-summarize. Summary can favor the good, the average, and the weak. Introduction to Summary. Summary is an aspect of the English language in the senior high school final examination. It is an area where you can easily harvest marks for an excellent or decent pass. It attracts 30 marks. Each answer is scored 5 marks. Wow! One sentence 5 marks. In all, the student writes only 6 sentences to score 30 marks. You must therefore take advantage of this harvest of marks. Students who do not do well in summary either fail or do not pass well in the English language. This is because summary arguably carries more marks than the oral paper and its comprehension. Many students do not know what they should do to score high marks in the summary test. This confusion comes mainly from the misunderstanding that students have about summary. Students think that summary is very difficult, that no matter what you do, you cannot score any good mark in summary, that you must use your own words to write what someone has written, that summary passages usually contain difficult and unfamiliar words. To comment on the last thinking, summary does not mean replacing one big word with another. If a student approaches a summary passage this way, then his or her behavior is like that of a boastful candidate who miserably failed his English language paper because he thought that the summary in the English language paper was all about how many big words he knew. This braggart, writing an English language paper, found an answer to one of the summary questions. The answer was the same as the popular proverb, "Birds of the same feather flock together." He then decided to change every word in this popular saying in the passage and maintain it as an answer for 5 marks. This conceited student then wrote, "The ornithological specimen of identical plumage congregate themselves within the same proximity." Wow! Are you surprised that this student failed his English language paper? Indeed, summary does not require big words. Changing a simple answer into a more complex one will make an answer rather wrong. This poor student could have used his own words to state the answer as "birds of a kind move together." The number of words in the original proverb is almost the same as this answer. However, some of the words have given way to simpler ones, so the meaning of this answer is the same as the original statement in the passage. Alternatively, the student could have also written, "People can be identified with their interests," or "People with the same behavior move together." The essence of summary is to restate points using simpler language. It is important to know that students are free to use words used in the passage when stating their answers. The simpler your answer, the better it is. For example, the statement, "I am with much pleasure writing this letter to you," is complex, can be better written as, "I am pleased to write you this letter." Simple. Summary is a daily routine, except that many people are not aware of the summary exercises they do all the time. In the house, in the church, and in the street, people use a discourse that is in fact summary. In news reading, before giving the details of the news, the newscaster recaps the stories this way. Queen Elizabeth returns home after her 2-day visit to Ghana. Nana leads the polls. Parliament goes on recess, and Ghana qualifies for the FIFA World Cup. The sentences above are summary statements. They are usually referred to as headlines. After these recaps, the newscaster now goes ahead to give details of the news. Providing news headlines ahead in the news involves summarizing the news. To be able to state answers correctly depends on understanding. Understanding the passage is the most important step in summary. When reading a summary passage, you must be purposeful. That is, you should focus on what you are looking for. Summarizing is precisely and concisely reducing the length of an original piece of writing by removing unnecessary details and leaving only main points using your own words. This implies that a summary passage must be very well understood. Summary, in simpler terms, is objective note-taking, turning the original writing into bare facts or ideas in your own words. Summary determines your level of understanding and ability to restate briefly what you have read in simpler language using your own words. Steps in summarizing. Read the passage more than twice before attempting to answer the questions. Do not use your eyes to skim through the passage for answers without reading it. Some students do not read the passage at all to comb out for answers. Identify the subject matter of the passage, what the passage is about. Read the questions carefully before you look for the answers. The introductory paragraph can directly or indirectly state the thesis statement or the general idea of the passage. Knowing what the passage is actually about will help you to give a title to the passage. Remember that if you get an appropriate title for any passage that you have read, it implies that you have understood the passage. Usually, a summary passage does not have a title. If it does, you will easily understand it. This is why, in trying to understand a passage, you guess what its title will be just for full understanding. Do not write any title on your answer sheet if there is no question like that. Read the following passage. Passage. The doctor asked Porky, who had wounded him with a heavy object. The hunter hit me with a big stick. That was what I saw. I now find myself in your hospital. Porky told the doctor. Why did he hit you with a stick? Tell me everything, the doctor urged Porky. He wanted me to stay away from the fruit tree near my house. Why did he want you to stay away from the fruit tree? Asked the doctor. So that he would kill the bears. That's wicked. Well, I want you to relax. My report will help your mom to call the police to arrest the hunter. Don't worry, okay? You'll soon go home. I worry about the bears. They are my friends. I love them, doctor. Oh, I see. That's kind of you, boy. We must protect wildlife. Bears can be friends and pets, said the doctor. Questions. A. Find a suitable title for the passage. B. State the main points in the passage. You can entitle this passage Protecting Wildlife. Note that bears are part of wildlife. Now read the questions under the passage. Let the questions guide you as you read the passage for answers. Neatly underline the areas that you consider to be the main ideas or possible answers with a pencil, so that it will be easier to go back to them. Note that not all paragraphs are important and relevant to the questions. Read the questions to be answered carefully to avoid choosing wrong answers, as in the passage you have just read. The hunter hit me with a big stick. He wanted me to stay away from the fruit tree so that he would kill the bears. My report will help your mom to call the police. We must protect wildlife. Bears can be friends and pets. State the main points in the paragraphs in your own words. These main ideas may be the answers to the questions in summary. You can easily summarize the passage about Pocky this way. The doctor learns that Pocky and the bears are friends. Pocky prevents the doctor from killing them. The hunter wounds Pocky with a stick. The doctor treats Pocky. The doctor promises to let the hunter face the law. A preamble. Some candidates may like to build a preamble, a common beginning for the 5 sentences, as in the main points in the passage are: 1. The doctor learns that Pocky and the bears are friends. 2. Pocky prevents the hunter from killing them. 3. The hunter wounds Pocky with a stick. 4. The doctor treats Pocky. 5. The doctor promises to let the hunter face the law. A preamble, as you can see, makes answers too long and too complex. Both ways of writing answers, using the preamble and without a preamble, are allowed. However, when there is a preamble, it must agree in tense and number with each of the answers moving with the preamble, else the answers will become grammatically incorrect. If you introduce a preamble, it means that answers will be truncated. So beginning what is not part of the preamble with a capital letter is wrong unless the word that begins an answer is a proper noun. Summary sentence patterns are usually basic sentences such as subject, verb, object, subject, verb, complement, subject, verb, adverbial, subject, verb, complement, adverbial, subject, verb, object, complement, subject, verb, object, adverbial, subject, verb, object, complement, adverbial. These items have been indicated under the main ideas in the passage. The doctor learns that Pocky and the bears are friends. Subject, verb, object. He prevents the hunter from killing them. Subject, verb, object, adverbial. The hunter wounds Pocky with a stick. Subject, verb, object, adverbial. The doctor treats Pocky. Subject, verb, object. The doctor promises to let the hunter face the law. Subject, verb, adverbial. All the above are simple sentence structures. Compare the underlined portions to the structures in the previous slide. Briefly state the answers. Leave out unnecessary details or economize words. You can do so by avoiding repetition. For example, the hunter wounded Pocky with a stick. The hunter hit Pocky with a heavy object. Avoiding repetition of ideas. The 2 sentences are a good example of repetition. The hunter wounded Pocky with a stick. The hunter hit Pocky with a heavy object. The same idea is repeated in different ways, a dangerous repetition. If you state the 2 sentences as answers, you will score 5 marks for the first answer. For your second answer, you will score 0 since it is a repetition of the same idea in the first answer. Avoiding repetition of words. Another type of repetition is when one word or expression appears twice or more in a summary sentence. Look at this example. Birds which fly together are the type with the same feathers. The 3 terms bears, which, and the type are the same as bears. Keep only bears in your summary sentence. Then write, same feather bears fly together. In fact, this is what the original sentence wants to say in 11 words. Let's try to summarize another sentence in the next slide. The reason why the hunter wounded Pocky, the little boy, was known to him alone. The sentence above is full of repetition. The reason and why are the same. The hunter and him are the same. Pocky and the little boy are the same. Go for why instead of the reason. You can summarize the sentence as only the hunter knows why he wounded Pocky, or no one knows why the hunter wounded Pocky. Note, using a word in 2 or more sentences is not repetition because answer number 1 has nothing to do with answer number 2. For example, in the question, state 2 things that Pocky loves Your answers can be Poki loves reading, Poki loves bears. The two sentences above are not a case of repetition. Reading and bears are two different things that Poki loves. Each sentence will score 5 marks since they answer the question perfectly. Use active statements where possible because active constructions are shorter and more direct. For example, the statement, "The doctor treated Poki," is shorter and simpler than "Poki was treated by the doctor." Count the words in each sentence. Which one is shorter? The doctor treated Poki, active sentence. Poki was treated by the doctor, passive sentence. The doctor is treating Poki, active sentence. Poki is being treated by the doctor, passive sentence. Avoiding phrases, clauses as answers. Read this short passage and identify the difference between phrases, clauses, sentences as answers. All parents are duty-bound to inculcate in their children certain values and virtues in life. It is these principles which make them responsible and successful people in their societies and wherever they find themselves. One such virtue is the fear of God. God-fearing people usually succeed as they are law-abiding and so do the right thing. The fear of God goes hand in hand with honesty. Under no circumstance should honesty be compromised. It is a virtue that parents must endeavor to imbue in their children. Honest people uphold the truth, and any society which lacks such people is a vulnerable one. Finally, parents must let their children appreciate punctuality. Punctuality, they say, is the soul of business, and time lost is lost forever. All those who are conscious of time usually produce results. In 3 sentences, state the 3 things that parents must inculcate in their children. The following answers are bad and should not be entertained, though they are the main points. One such virtue is the fear of God, or the fear of God, unacceptable. Honesty or being honest, unacceptable. Punctuality, unacceptable. One such virtue is the fear of God. Is a sentence alright, but 2 keywords, parents and children, are missing. The fear of God is a noun phrase. Honesty and punctuality are nouns. The following answers are acceptable. 1. Parents must teach children the fear of God. Or parents must teach children to fear God. Or parents must imbue the fear of God in children. Or parents must teach children to be God-fearing. 2. Parents must teach children to be honest. Or parents must teach children honesty. Or parents must teach children to appreciate honesty. 3. Parents must make children value punctuality. Or parents must teach children to respect time. Answers in the previous slide and the current one are the acceptable answers. Stating answers. Answers should be in sentences but not phrases or dependent or non-finite clauses. Begin each sentence with a capital letter and end it with a full stop. A question may require more than one sentence. For example, in 3 sentences, 1 for each, state the points that further research should clarify about prehistoric chewing gum. Read the following passage before you answer the questions above. The world's universities are bursting at their seams. Every faculty has recently had to close its doors to hundreds of heartbroken applicants. Archaeology is no exception, and that is as it should be, for without this discipline, the world would have been deprived of very useful base of knowledge. One shudders at how badly off the world would have been for the lack of such useful knowledge. For instance, last Friday, the 13th of August, every news bulletin carried the item of a most exhilarating archaeological find. 9,000-year-old fossils dug up from 50 miles below the Earth's surface had revealed that in prehistoric times, teenagers chewed gum. The experts knew that the teeth of the fossils definitely belonged to a teenager because, although they were not as developed as a fully grown adults, they were much stronger than a child should have been. The gum had been solidified from sap from a birch tree and must have been sweetened with honey with mint leaf added for flavor. Further research was promised to determine whether chewing gum was medicinal. The suspicion was that it was. Otherwise, why would a teenager in the bloom of youthful exuberance lie dead with his gum securely wedged between his molars? Research would also establish whether the prehistoric teenager also chewed his gum until all its sweetness ran out, and whether he did so with relish. The excavation and its attendant analysis has so far cost $18 billion American dollars, the newscaster said. A further $10 billion had been allocated to the Archaeological Consortium to resolve the related questions that puzzled modern scientists, historians, and sociologists, indeed the whole of the academic world. Anum chewed his lower lip as he gazed at the preset radio that was excitedly blasting the details. Being a typical third world country bumpkin with no breeding in aesthetics, he mused upon how very grateful his debt-ridden motherland would be if these billions were to be given her to pay off some of her foreign debts. But that is to be expected because Anum is too Philistine to pay compliments where compliments are due. The mothers of the Women's Union are more cultured in their views. They would be grateful if a little more money is added to the allocation to enable the archaeologists to tell them whether the mothers of the Stone Age era approved of their teenage children cheerily chewing their prehistoric chewing gum. SSSC 1994. Questions. A. In a single sentence, use 3 adjectives that describe prehistoric chewing gum. B. In one sentence, state the general usefulness of archaeology. C. In 3 sentences, one for each, list the points that further research should clarify about prehistoric chewing gum. D. In one sentence, contrast Anum's attitude with that of the archaeologists. The focus is on question C, which has been asked in a previous slide. Answers. Answers for question C are stated as follows. 1. Further research was to find out whether chewing gum was medicinal. 2. Further research would determine whether prehistoric teenagers chewed gum because of its sweetness. Or further research would determine whether prehistoric teenagers chewed gum for pleasure. 3. Research was to tell whether prehistoric mothers allowed their teenage children to chew gum. Note that these answers are indirect questions. For example, the direct question was chewing gum medicinal, which is the same as answer 1, cannot be a summary answer. Answers can be short but precise if the following steps are taken using active statements, as indicated earlier, where possible because active constructions are shorter and more direct. Answers should be simple and self-explanatory. Do not support answers with examples, but note that a question may require you to summarize an example in the passage. This is different from where students may write, for example, like, as, such as, that is, in other words. These expressions are not allowed in summary. Now, read this short paragraph. It has been estimated that millions of adults in this country use alcoholic beverages in some form. Some of these people are moderate users. These users may drink small amounts of alcoholic beverages, such as wine, on special occasions. They may even drink it with a meal now and then. Other people use alcoholic drinks more often or more heavily. Some can control their use. Others may sometimes have alcohol problems. They may get sick, pass out, have accidents, get into fights, or even do violence to others. In the paragraph above, alcohol problems are the same as get sick, pass out, have accidents, get into fights, or even do violence to others. So get sick, pass out, have accidents, get into fights, or even do violence to others should be treated as examples of alcohol problems. Discarding avoidable adverbs, adjectives. The statement, Jesus Christ did very wonderful things, can be written as Jesus Christ did wonders. Very and things are avoided in the summarized sentence, while the adjective wonderful changes into wonders a noun. Look at the following sentence. Little by little, the committed and hard-working men and women carried the sand in the truck to the work site. Can be written as gradually, the workers carried the sand in the truck to the site. Adverbs and adjectives like little by little, committed, hard-working, and work are discarded or changed to simpler ones. For example, the adverbial expression little by little turns into gradually. Note, the committed and hard-working men and women can be called workers. Can't we have a second look at this summarized sentence by removing in the truck? For example, gradually the workers carried the sand to the site. Look at another example of unnecessary adjectives and adverbs below. Anytime the headmistress is extremely angry, she resorts to the use of insulting language. This can be summarized as the headmistress uses insulting language when angry, or the headmistress insults when angry. Perhaps the following sentence will give you more understanding of using your own words. So long as the Almighty God is on our side, we shall prevail over our enemies. How do you understand this statement? Summarize it by weeding out what you consider avoidable. For example, God is still God without adding Almighty. Note, on our side can be replaced by with. Begin your summary sentence with and add God. That is, with God we shall defeat our enemies. The word enemies helps us to understand the word prevail. So defeat is better because it is simpler and more common than prevail. Avoiding lifting chunks. It is unscholarly to copy a whole long sentence from a passage as your answer because you do not want to miss the answer, as in further research was promised to determine whether chewing gum was medicinal. The blue portion of the sentence makes it lifting. Without the blue part, you would have written your own sentence. For example, further research would determine whether chewing gum was medicinal. Research would also establish whether the prehistoric teenager chewed his gum until all his sweetness ran out and whether he did so with relish. If you copy the entire sentence, you have lifted chunks because you have added what you do not understand. The sentence contains two ideas. Further research would establish whether the prehistoric teenager 1. Chewed gum for its sweetness, 2. Chewed gum with delight. Avoiding impersonal pronouns. The sentence, it is the movement of the air past the wings of gliders and aircraft which keeps them up, can be rewritten as the movement of the air past the wings of gliders and aircraft keeps them up, or air movement past gliders' wings and aircraft keeps them up. Can't we further summarize it this way? Air movement past flying objects keeps them up, or air moving past flying objects keeps them up. The same words have been used, but the second sentence is shorter because the subject it and its verb is have been omitted. We must be more specific by avoiding impersonal pronouns such as it and their. Example, there are three main branches of literature. Becomes, literature has three main branches. Avoiding appositives. Apposition is more or less the repetition of the same noun or noun phrases in different terms. Only one should be maintained in summary. For example, the rumor that the prince has traveled is true. In the sentence above, the rumor is the same as that the prince has traveled. You can summarize the sentence as the rumor is true. The following are relative pronouns: who, whom, whose, what, which, and that. A relative clause is usually led by a relative pronoun. Relative pronouns and clauses are usually the same as the nouns that come before these relative pronouns and clauses. Such nouns are known as antecedents. A relative pronoun or clause can be successfully omitted without harming the main point in summary. Example: the Anopheles mosquito is the insect which causes malaria. Insect is considered as a repetition of mosquito and should be deleted. The clause which causes malaria is a relative clause or subordinate clause. The relative pronoun should also be deleted, turning the sentence into a simple one with cause functioning as the main verb. The Anopheles mosquito causes malaria, or the Anopheles is the malaria causative agent. Avoiding prepositional phrases. Prepositional phrases should be avoided or minimized if possible in summary. For example, Araba makes use of her time wisely becomes Araba uses her time wisely. The noun use modified by the prepositional phrase of her time turns into a verb and functions as the main verb of the sentence. Changing word class. Changing the word classes of nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs into others is another way through which sentences can be simplified. Example: the angry mob killed the thief with stones becomes the mob stoned the thief dead. The MP tabled a motion for the adjournment of the meeting can be rewritten as the MP moved to adjourn the meeting. The word motion now changes into moved verb to replace tabled verb in the original sentence. Adjournment now turns into adjourn verb. This is one way of using your own words. The statement, "The Stone Age men used chewing gum to strengthen their teeth," can be summarized using your own words by changing the highlighted words, as in, Stone Age men chewed gum to make their teeth strong. The difference in the number of words between the main statement and the summarized version is just one word. However, the summarized one is more down to F. Another example: parents who forego their creature comforts in order to see their children through school abroad often regret their sacrifices in the end. Can be summarized as: some parents are disappointed by their children after sacrificing to make them school abroad. Or some parents feel disappointed sacrificing for their children to school abroad. The number of words in the original sentence is 22 and has been reduced to 13. A statement can be reduced to a bare fact this way. You can better state, some parents regret sacrificing for their children to study abroad. Remember that when you are required to use your own words, you are not expected to form new words. Using other forms of a word will help you maintain the main idea. You would have used your own words. For example, if one word in each of the following word forms is used, any of the remaining can replace it if it is appropriately used. Action, act, active, acting, activity, acts, acted, actively. Usage, use, using, uses, user, used, users, usable. Assist, assistance, assist, assisted, assisting, assistant. Causing, causer, causative, causes, cause, caused. Player, playing, playful, plays, played, play. Can you tell the difference in the following pairs of sentences? 1. A 2 is a player of the team. 2. A 2 plays for the team. 1. Ahmed has been assisting the headmaster. 2. Ahmed is an assistant headmaster. 1. The baby's actions suggest that he is mature. 2. The baby acts maturely. 1. The man in front is the one causing confusion in our camp. 2. The man in front causes confusion in our camp. The end of part 1. Wait for part 2. Philo's Summary Tutor, part 2. Welcome to Philo's Summary Tutor, part 2. Definitions are usually found in a summary passage. Such definitions should be avoided as much as possible. The following sentence, "The study of living organisms is really fascinating," can be written as "Biology is fascinating." This is because the study of living organisms defines the subject, biology. The sentence below is the definition of socialization. It is the first sentence of the passage in the next slide. Only socialization should represent all the words in this sentence. Socialization is the process by which the growing child slowly absorbs the attitudes, values, and customs of society. Simple and interesting summary exercises have been provided to help readers who find summary difficult to overcome their difficulty. Socialization is the process by which the growing child slowly absorbs the attitudes, values, and customs of society. Parents and siblings play an important role in the process, although their influence interacts with that of media, peers, school, and relatives and other adults. Connections have been found between the disciplinary styles of parents and the personalities of their children, although it is impossible to say definitely that any particular type of child rearing has a specific effect on children. Authoritarian and permissive parents both are likely to produce dependent children. Perhaps because both kinds of parents tend to shield their children from stress. Non-conformist parents often produce dependent girls and independent high-achieving boys. Authoritative parents, who are firm but not repressive, tend to produce independent, socially responsible girls and socially responsible boys with average levels of independence. Indifferent parents may produce demanding, less compliant, aggressive children, although the link has not been established by research. The techniques parents use in the hope of producing instrumentally competent children include punishment, reinforcement, and modeling. Among other factors believed to affect child rearing positively are consistent parental behavior that responds to changes in children's cognitive and social development, continuity in caregiving arrangements, and the child's temperament. Most toddlers and preschoolers are disturbed and unhappy when a younger sibling is born. The way mother talks about the new baby, whether she encourages the older child to help with infant care, and the older child's initial interest in the new baby interact, affecting whether the siblings later become friends. Siblings help socialize one another, and although most siblings fight, sibling rivalries do not seem to dominate their relationships. High-quality daycare does not seem to harm the cognitive, social, or emotional development of children. No long-term effects on the mother-child relationship have appeared, and children in daycare tend to get along better with peers than children who stay home. Although this may simply be accelerated development of social skills, the ratio of staff to children in any daycare center is critical. The effect of maternal employment on children appears to depend on the interaction of many factors, but the strongest influence may be the mother's level of satisfaction. Daughters generally benefit when their mothers work, but sons sometimes suffer. Increased partner involvement in child rearing probably benefits children when both parents are favorably disposed towards the father's increased participation. Parents in different social classes tend to treat their children differently, and the major effect is to encourage conformity to authority among working-class children and autonomy among middle-class children. The economy of a culture plays a major part in determining which values are stressed during socialization. From Child Psychology Today by Elizabeth Hall and others. Questions. A. State the impact of authoritative and permissive parenting on children. B. In 3 sentences, 1 for each, state 3 results of authoritative and non-conformist parents on girls. C. In 2 sentences, 1 for each, state 2 factors that influence positive child rearing. D. In 1 sentence, state the difference between children in daycare and those at home. Note: portions of the passage have been highlighted. They are important in choosing your answers. Such areas contain the main ideas. In the highlighted areas, you can find clues or keys, words which guide you to where you will find the answers. For example, in question A, the following words, impact, authoritative, permissive, parent, parenting, can help you to identify the answers. Authoritative, non-conformist parents and girls will guide you to locate the answers for question B. The following words and terms can guide you to answers for question C. Factors affect positive influence and child rearing. Children, daycare, and home can lead you to the answer for question D. Now, A. State the impact of authoritative and permissive parenting on children. Let the areas in red form part of your answers. Authoritarian and permissive parents produce dependent children. So the answer can be authoritarian and permissive parents produce dependent children. Is there any sentence like this in the passage? No. You've written your own sentence and used your own words. B. In 3 sentences, 1 for each, State 3 results of authoritative and non-conformist parents on girls. Let the portions in red be part of your answers. Remember that names and technical terms as in the text below are not changed. Authoritarian, produce dependent children. Non-conformist parents, produce dependent girls. Authoritative parents, not repressive, produce independent, responsible girls. Answers for question B are the following. 1. Both non-conforming and authoritative parenting produce dependent girls. 2. Authoritative but not repressive parents produce independent girls. 3. Authoritative parents without repression produce responsible girls. C. In 2 sentences, one for each, state 2 factors that influence positive child rearing. State the 2 answers from the text below. Factors affect child rearing positively. Consistent parental behavior. Continuity in caregiving arrangements. The child's temperament. 1. Consistent parenting positively influences child rearing. 2. The child's temperament positively affects child rearing. 3. Continuous caregiving positively impacts on child's rearing. Accept any 2 of these answers. All the 3 answers provided are correct. They are original sentences created by the one who summarized. Note also that words like factors, affect, influence, and positively are clues which alert you to locate answers. Some of these words can be found in the answers. D. State the difference between children in daycare and those at home. Children in daycare better with peers than children home. The answer can be daycare children relate better with peers than children at home, or daycare children socialize better with peers than children at home. Do not use phrasal verbs, idioms, or proverbs in your answer. Such expressions are not clear. They are ambiguous. While stating the answer, the following terms tend to get along have been avoided because they are idiomatic. Some candidates may like to build a preamble, a common beginning for the 3 sentences, as in, factors that affect child rearing positively are 1. Consistent parenting. 2. The child's temperament. 3. Continuous caregiving. Note that each answer begins from factors, so punctuation becomes a problem. You are wrong if the C of consistent is a capital C, T of a capital T, and the C of continuous, capital C. Only a proper noun in such a position should begin with a capital letter. You are advised to avoid a preamble. This is because if you make an error in the preamble, you will be penalized for each in the 3 answers. Common errors made in the preamble include concord, adding unnecessary details, repetition, punctuation and expression, comparing and contrasting. When you are to compare and contrast 2 or more things, 2 things are involved. 1. You compare to identify what the 2 things have in common, that is, their similarities. 2. You compare to know their differences and their unique features. When these differences are found, you may pitch one against the other. In other words, you contrast them to show differences. Note, do not draw a table and state similarities and differences under the things being compared. Now let us compare the two countries, Ghana and China. 1. Both names are spelled with 5 letters. Similarity. 2. Both Ghana and China end with NA. Similarity. Both Ghana and China are countries. Similarity. Now let us contrast Ghana and China. In this case, the following conjunction should be used: but, whereas, while, on the one hand, on the other hand, whilst, and comparative adjectives and adverbs. 1. Ghana begins with G, but China begins with C. Difference. Whereas China begins with G, China begins with C. Ghana begins with G, but China begins with C. While Ghana begins with G, China begins with C. 2. China is bigger than Ghana. Difference. 3. On the one hand, China is technologically advanced. On the other hand, Ghana is a developing country. Difference. The following statements are wrong when comparing and contrasting. Ghana begins with G and China begins with C. Wrong. Ghana begins with G, China begins with C. Wrong. Ghana begins with G, China begins with C. Wrong. 2. China is big, Ghana is small. Wrong. 3. China is technologically advanced and Ghana is a developing country. Wrong. The sentences above are wrong because contrasting conjunctions such as but, while, and whereas are missing. A passage. Do you know that drinks made with whiskey, gin, or vodka have a drug in them? If you answered yes, you are right. The drug is alcohol. Beer and wine have alcohol in them too, but there is not nearly so much alcohol. Like all drugs, alcohol brings about changes in people who drink it. Alcohol affects the way their bodies work. It affects their emotions too. What happens when alcohol is taken into the body? The working of the brain slows down. This slows the working of the rest of the body. Much depends on the amount of alcohol a person drinks. Even though its effects may not clearly show, alcohol keeps a person from thinking as clearly as usual. It may make a person clumsy. It may keep a person from talking distinctly. Also, different people react differently to the same amount of alcohol. This is the case with all drugs. A person can never be sure exactly how alcohol will affect him or her. Alcohol may affect the same person differently at different times. People behave in different ways after drinking too much. With heavy drinking, some people may act silly, some may do foolish things, others may become quarrelsome, still others may become sleepy. Alcohol is also a factor in accidents. Many traffic accidents involve drivers or pedestrians who have been drinking alcoholic beverages. Why? It has been estimated that millions of adults in this country use alcoholic beverages in some form. Some of these people are moderate users. These users may drink small amounts of alcoholic beverages such as wine on special occasions. They may even drink it with a meal now and then. Other people use alcoholic drinks more often or more heavily. Some can control their use. Others may sometimes have alcohol problems. They may get sick, pass out, have accidents, get into fights, or even do violence to others. There are some people who are intoxicated often enough to prevent them from living normal lives. These people cannot control their heavy drinking. Family problems may result. Jobs may be lost. These people are known as alcoholics. A person who has this difficulty needs help. The help can be given by a doctor or by others who understand the problem. There are things young people especially should know about alcohol. Alcohol affects a young person more than it does to an adult. That is because a young body is usually smaller than an adult body, and all drug dosage is related to weight. Therefore, small amounts of alcohol cause faster and greater effects in young people than in adults. Too much of alcohol taken at one time can even cause death. From You and Your Health by J.B. Richmond and E.T. Pounds. Questions. A. In 3 sentences, 1 for each, identify 3 types of alcohol users. B. In 3 sentences, 1 for each, state 3 effects of alcohol on young people. Passage. You must have oxygen to stay alive. It is found in the air you breathe. Your breathing or respiratory system allows air to enter the body. It comes in through your nose or mouth and is drawn into the lungs. In the lungs, oxygen is picked up by the blood. The blood carries it to all the body cells. When you breathe out a gas called carbon dioxide, some other waste are sent out of the body. Let's find out more about the different parts of the respiratory system. These parts are the nose, the windpipe or trachea, the bronchial tubes and lungs. Air goes into your body through your nose. Some can also go in through your mouth. It is best to breathe through your nose most of the time. You know why? Air that comes in through the nose is prepared for the lungs. For one thing, the air is filtered by many tiny hairs in your nose. These hairs catch some of the germs and larger particles of dust you breathe in. The sticky fluid called mucus in the lining of your nose also helps collect dust and germs. This mucus moistens the air passing through the nose. Some of the dust and germs caught in the mucus is carried out when you blow your nose. Some is carried to the throat and can be swallowed, or it is coughed up from your throat. In these ways, many germs and particles of dirt are kept from reaching the lungs. As the air comes in and passes over the fold of skin inside the nose, it is warmed somewhat. This helps keep the body from becoming chilled. The nose is sometimes called the body's air conditioner. This is because it moistens the air and filters out some impurities. Suppose, however, that the air is very dirty. It contains harmful gases or other pollutants. Some pollutants may include those found in cigarette smoke. When you breathe, neither the hairs in the nose nor the mucus can prevent many of the pollutants from reaching your lungs. So you can see why air pollution is a serious health problem. The air that comes into the nose or mouth goes down a tube called the windpipe or trachea. The voice box or larynx is at the upper end of the windpipe. The windpipe extends down into your neck, and then it divides into 2 large branches called bronchial tubes. One bronchial tube goes to each of the lungs. From You and Your Health by J.B. Richmond and E.T. Pounds. Questions. In 4 sentences, 1 for each, state 4 reasons that make breathing through the nose better. B. In 2 sentences, 1 for each, state 2 effects of breathing through the mouth. Passage. Read the following passage and answer the questions on it. Most people want to be successful in life, but success can come about in 4 ways. fame, money, knowledge, and pleasure. Success is also usually characterized by the word more. To be successful, people feel they have to be more famous, have more money, absorb more information, or enjoy life more. Success does not need to be characterized by quantity. However, instead, you can measure the success of your life by its quality. It is not important, for example, how many people know you, but who knows you and for what. Working in your community or on good relationships with family and friends can bring quality fame. Earning less money but spending it wisely and learning the joy of saving is another way to succeed. Learning more so that you can turn around and teach someone else produces quality knowledge. And finally, all the above will most likely bring you quality success in enjoying the pleasures of living. Success, in conclusion, can be seen in different ways by different people. Only one thing is sure: no matter what other people see, the only one who knows whether you have succeeded is you. Questions. A. In 4 sentences, one for each, state the 4 views that people hold about success. B. In 1 sentence, state how success can be measured. C. In 2 sentences, one for each, state according to the writer 2 ways in which success can be achieved. Passage. Many people complain that modern society is too materialistic. Other people, they say, place too great an importance on material property rather than values. These critics insist people today value things. There is no doubt that we live in a material, consumer-oriented society. In economic terms, consumers use products. In everyday language, they acquire things: TVs, cars, clothes, furniture. This kind of materialism can actually be good for a society, since it helps create jobs. When people have jobs, they acquire self-respect along with the money they need to provide the material things they and their families require. It is true, on the other hand, that many people have taken healthy consumerism too far. Materialism is evident when an otherwise intelligent person goes into debt charging things that he or she cannot pay for. Materialism is evident when people insist on buying any particular designer label even though the same quality can be found in a cheaper product. Materialism is evident when people are judged and admired for what they own rather than what they can do. Even if society has gone too far in the direction of materialism, as some say, the individual person doesn't need to surrender. He or she can still value honesty, integrity, freedom, talent, quality, and all other values there are to value, and leave the materialism to others. Questions. In 1 sentence, state what constitutes good materialism. B. In 3 sentences, one for each, state 3 forms that materialism takes. Passage. Read the following passage carefully and answer the questions that follow. It has long been the most popular sport in the world. Today, it is played in 140 nations by nearly 60 million athletes. Recently, an estimated 800 million people watched a televised game for its championship. The sport is soccer, and this great popularity can be attributed to 4 important characteristics of the game. The foremost reason for the popularity of soccer is the nature of the game, with freelance plays and swift continuous action. The game seldom stops because substitution is not allowed except for injury and there's little coaching from the sidelines to show the tempo. A combination of individual skills and team play produces a blend of artistry, drama, and excitement that has universal appeal for athlete and spectator alike. A second reason for soccer's popularity is the fact that the game is easy to understand. The purpose of play is immediately clear: to score a goal by propelling the ball into a net. The ball is always in view, so the basic patterns of offense and defense are simple to follow. Such simplicity, though a prized virtue, is deceptive, and that is another reason for the game's popularity. Soccer has many different levels of skills. In its most elementary form, children kick a ball as they might kick a tin can along a street. At its highest plane, the best players control the ball as though it were tied by a string to their feet. The fourth reason for soccer's widespread appeal is that athletes don't have to be tall or big to play. The world-famous soccer star Pelé is 5.8 feet and weighs 165 pounds. Physical contact is incidental to the game and is not a major tactic as in American football and rugby. Pure skills and instant and complete ball control, nimbleness and endurance and desire are what count. An individual player or spectator may have additional, more personal reasons for enjoying soccer. Each enthusiast, however, like millions of other people around the world, is attracted by soccer's swift play, clear purpose, variety of skills levels, and opportunities for players of all sizes. Questions. A. In 4 sentences, one for each, state the 4 reasons given by the writer for the popularity of soccer. B. In 1 sentence, state the main purpose of soccer. C. In not more than 5 words, give a suitable title to the passage. Your answer should not be a sentence. Answers. A. Number 1. Soccer is a purposeful game. 2. The beauty of soccer has universal appeal. 3. People enjoy the continuous action of soccer. 3. People enjoy the continuous action of soccer. 4. The rules of soccer are simple to follow. 5. Soccer involves the display of individual skills. 6. Soccer can be played by people of all sizes. B. The purpose of soccer is to score a goal. C. The game of soccer. Passage. No nation in the world can remain unaffected by the network of trade and investment which has been spun round the world in the last 3 centuries. None is beyond the reach of the modern communication system. All nations are in varying degrees involved in the new technological order. Nor do problems and difficulties vary completely from region to region. Yet there are a number of cogent reasons for looking at the problems of relatively high-income and low-income countries separately. This separation has nothing to do with judgments about what is valuable or creative in national life. Low-income countries include some of the greatest and most ancient of the world's cultures, and some of its oldest and most continuous political states. The need for separation stems from certain sharp contrasts between conditions and opportunities in what have come to be called developed and developing states. It can be said that low-income countries, that is those which fall below a certain arbitrary level of national income, tend to share certain acute problems which affect their environmental outlook and which may not be experienced at all in developed lands. For one, their populations are growing almost twice as fast as those of wealthier countries, and twice as fast as the industrializing states in the 19th century. Also, their soils tend to be more fragile and their climates less reliable and moderate than in the temperate zones, where the majority of high-income states are to be found. Moreover, very little is known in scientific terms about the national conditions and needs of developing lands. Unfortunately, in most of these countries, urbanization has preceded industrialization, exposing them to many social problems, with the workforce growing at twice the traditional rate, not to mention the rising tendency to invest mostly in equipment. Prevalent unemployment is added to the more traditional evils of poor housing and sanitation and lack of proper training and skills. However, whether rich or poor, developed or developing, industrialized or pre-technological, all countries are caught in the many webs of trade, communication, and influence. All are involved in the welfare and survival of their respective communities. Whatever their individual and immediate social and economic problems, they are confronted with the ultimate challenge of ensuring the survival and good condition of this planet F. SSSC 1997. Questions. A. In one sentence, state what, according to the writer, binds nations together. B. In two sentences, one for each, state two natural problems peculiar to developing countries. C. In two sentences, one for each, state two social problems peculiar to developing countries. D. In one sentence, state the main problem that confronts all countries. Answers. A. All nations are brought together by trade. Or all nations are bound together by investment. Or the modern communication system links all nations. Or all nations are bound by modern technology. Any one of these answers above should be stated. B. 1. The soils of developing countries are not fertile, or the soils of developing countries are not nutrient. 2. The climates of developing countries are unreliable. C. 1. Developing countries suffer the problem of widespread unemployment. 2. Population growth in developing countries is fast. 3. Developing countries are confronted with the problem of poor housing. 4. Developing countries suffer from poor sanitation. 5. Developing countries lack proper skills. 6. Developing countries do not get the requisite training. 7. The natural conditions of developing countries are in oblivion. D. All countries have the task of ensuring the survival of the earth. All countries are confronted with the sustenance of the environment. The end.